number 1.
Okay.
Okay? And then executive session, we can make that the new item number 3.
Okay. So you want to go into executive session before the confirmations?
Yes.
Okay.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. There's a motion on the floor by Dr. Casey, second by Mr. Romero. Roll call, please.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Olivari?
Yes.
Counselor Casey?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Casey, a second by Counselor Romero. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is nomination of Mayor Pro Tem.
I'd like to just take a second to thank Mr. Romero for being such a wonderful Mayor Pro Tem. Everybody knows that I work and so does he, but always seems to have time to do what he needs to do and show up, and at last minute if I call him, he's at a meeting, and he's very active with the city council, and has played such a magnificent role as a Mayor Pro Tem. But with that, I'd just like to open the floor for nominations for Mayor Pro Tem.
It's a 1-year term, Mr. Mayor?
Yes,
Okay, and that is specified in the charter.
correct. Scott, is the Mayor Pro Tem's term specified in the charter? Huh?
Yeah.
It is? For a year.
Mr. Mayor, just for the sake of discussion, I believe that normally, traditionally, the next in line with the most experience would be the person that is named as the pro tem. So I would like to nominate Councilor Ulibarri.
I reject.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to nominate back Councilman Romero as a pro tem.
Very well. So there was a nomination by Dr. Casey for Councilman Ulibarri. And there's
He rejected,
oh,
Mr. Mayor.
okay. So the only nomination at this point is a nomination for Mr. Romero.
Ms. Casey, would you be interested on it or no?
I would be, yes.
We'll go ahead and nominate Ms. Casey.
Very well. I'd like to call for a seize of the nominations.
I move that nomination cease.
There's a motion by Dr. Casey that nomination cease at this point for the Mayor Pro Tem role. And we should do a public vote on each one. Okay.
Nomination for Counselor Romero. Counselor Ulibarri.
Yes.
Counselor Montoya.
No.
Counselor Casey.
No. Nothing personal.
And I don't believe Counselor Romero will vote for yourself. Nomination for Counselor Casey.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Romero?
I'll go ahead and withdraw my nomination
Okay.
just tonight.
Oh, you're so kind.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Montoya?
I just think, the reason I asked Dr. Casey Perea, counselor, I would rather call you counselor, but it's because I think that, if somebody's willing to serve, they ought to be getting the chance to serve. It's not always about if you have the votes or not. I think change is good, A lot of people don't like change, and it's hard to accept. But I think it's good too. So I do want to thank Mr. Romero. He's been an awesome Pro Tem, Mayor Pro Tem. I've seen him in action, and like the mayor said, he's always been there. He's done his duty, and thank you very much for your service. And his experience doesn't go unnoticed. But again, in order, that's why it's done every year, so that different council members, whether male or female, can rotate that position. And all of us up here, I think, and I believe strongly, are going to do the betterment for our city. I believe any one of us could be in that position as Mayor Pro Tem. I mean, I don't know about mayor, because those take bigger shoes. But,
Yeah, you've got pretty big feet.
but, thank you, Mr. Romero, again,
Thank you.
for your service and your dedication.
Thank you.
So we need a vote on the
So I have a
nomination?
nomination
For-
for Counselor Casey by
Counselor
Counselor
Casey.
Montoya. Counselor Romero,
Yes.
Counselor Montoya,
Yes.
Counselor Olivari.
Yes.
So I have a nomination by Counselor Montoya, and all in favor voted yes for Counselor Casey to
Thank
be the
you.
next Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for
Thank you,
wanting to
David.
serve.
You did an awesome job. I hope I can fill your shoes and see how big they are.
Thank you so much. This is
Mayor, moving on
Mhm.
to public input.
Okay.
I did receive one email for public input for tonight's meeting for business item number 7, which is now business item number 1. Thank you, Fire Chief. This is from Michael Martinez. Thank you, Fire Chief Stephen Spann, for a resolution restricting fireworks in Las Vegas and for going the extra mile during the wildfires to protect our city and its residents. Your hard work and dedication to our city has earned you the right to be considered as our permanent fire chief. Dear councilors, when will the council be voting on making Stephen Spann the permanent fire chief? Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's the only
Thank you.
public input I have.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Montoya?
I stepped up for a minute, but I didn't see the Pledge of Allegiance on this agenda. And that's by protocol by Mayor and Council. So if
I'm
you-
sorry,
I'm
we
sorry,
did it while
Mr.
you were
Mayor.
while you stepped out.
Well, it's not on the agenda. but-
Can I have one of the officers come up and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Alice.
You were just so enthusiastic. I'm going there.
What is your name, sir? Officer Alice. Officer Alice, welcome. All right.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Thanks for noticing that.
Mr. Mayor, next on the agenda is mayor's appointments, reports, recognitions, and proclamations.
So the governor's office has communicated with us. They are going to be sending selected people from her cabinet to Las Vegas tomorrow to a meeting that's scheduled for elected officials. And the purpose of the meeting is to make sure that there are any other services that the governor might have missed, or any of the services that we may need in our community. And that's going to be a time to talk about what those services are and how we can get those services to our people. So that meeting is tomorrow with members of the governor's cabinet. The second item I have is everyone has been concerned about the drinking water, and a lot of people have commented about the quality of our water. And I'd like to tell people that our water, the quality of our water is impeccable at this time. We have plenty of water in storage. We are asking citizens to please conserve when you can. And we are working around the clock to get to those burn scars up on the watershed, up from the Gainas pond all the way up to where the forest fire was, so we could do some mediation and some reclamation of that land, and possibly working with engineers as soon as we can to prevent any of that ash and debris from getting into the river during a large rain event. So the governor's office set up a tour of FEMA, the state water, the state engineer's office, the EPA, I don't know how many, but I'll let Leo take this over today. And they scaled through they did an assessment of the watershed, and I'll hand this over to Mr. Maestas for details.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We did a damage assessment in the watershed, a portion of the watershed, along with our diversion dam and our reservoirs. Just so I don't leave anybody out, we did meet with California Emergency Management, New Mexico Homeland Security, New Mexico Forestry Service, FEMA, Army Corps of Engineers, our city water staff, our CGI, which is our city water engineer, EPA, and Oklahoma Emergency Management. A lot of these agencies have already gone through these catastrophes, so they want to show us what lessons they learned through theirs, so that we don't make the same through ours. We've identified some projects that we can implement immediately with some removal of burnt trees. We are going to communicate with an engineer, a water engineer that's done these types of projects before, so we can start implementing some diversions and projects into the waterway before we see the monsoons get here. So we're going to continue communicating with them. We did sustain a little bit of electrical damage on one of our diversion electrical pumps, but they are still functioning. But like I said, we'll continue working with them so we can get every money that's owed to the city, and then also look at mitigation efforts for the future.
Very well.
Mayor, Council, if I may, just to touch base on, I didn't have these numbers last week in my briefing, but I wanted to brief on the last 4 auctions. We've auctioned off 57 vehicles, 93 items, for totaling just over $200,000.
Thank you, Mr. Maestas. Appreciate that. Next order of business, please.
Mr. Mayor, councilors' reports.
Councilors? Mr. Montoya?
I'd just like to take a moment and recognize all the volunteers and all the people that have donated to this CAP fire, Hermit's Big Fire, from Arizona, people from Arizona, companies from Arizona, from Albuquerque, from the South Valley, from Santa Fe, from Raton, from Colorado. You know, a lot of people that have moved out from Las Vegas reflect back on the ones that have been here and the ones that stay behind and what they're going through. And they're very generous of donating to the shelters in Mora, Peñasco, and here in Las Vegas. And I just want to thank them. Most of those people want to stay anonymous. You know, they don't want no credit. They just want to help out. And I thank them publicly for caring about Las Vegas and the people of Las Vegas and its surrounding areas. And also first-hand responders in our fire department and our police department, our staffing, everyone. I didn't get a chance to thank anybody last week because I wasn't here. But, you know, it's important that everybody came together on trying to deal with the circumstances at hand. I know that everyone was prepared for in case any disaster would come into our city limits, and we were taking care of the citizens, and that should have been number 1 on our list and everybody's list. And secondly, our employees. And our city manager came up with policies at the last minute, figuring out how we can let employees go home that are being affected with the fire. He did an internal policy that was able to help them out. So, you know, a big thank you to everyone that was involved and everybody being positive and putting forth their best foot, addressing all the issues at hand. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Olivari?
I want to do the same thing as Councilman Montoya is saying, but I want to recognize Dolores Ortega. She's helping out at Memorial Middle School, and she's doing a lot of stuff in her house, helping the neighbors and getting a lot of food from some companies and this and that. She's been working for the past 3 weeks, back and forth. I just want to thank her for all the work, and especially all our employees and our staff and our managers and everybody that's involved with the fires. Thanks you for everything.
Mr.
Mr.
Mayor.
Montoya.
One last item, Mr. Mayor and Council, is I'd like to, this is to our 20,000 viewers out there on La La Land, Las Vegas. The city of Las Vegas presently has 37 openings, vacant openings in different departments, from our economic development director to fire chief to custodians through cooks. Recreation has a few of them too. We have police officers vacancy, 37 vacancies. So if you know of anybody that's looking for a job, send them our way. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Romero and
Can't
then
add
Ms.
any more
Casey.
to what Councilor Montoya and Councilor Ulibarri have said, the outpour of support from, not only those that have, are from this community, but those that have moved away from this community. But, even the amount of support from, nationally. And I just wanted to, now thank Leo and Arnold for the past week or so. We've unloaded 3 semi-loads of items that the city is directly getting involved with Global Citizen, that they're going to have a big distribution drive. It's going to be huge, 3 semi-loads of stuff. So I know we were waiting for the flyer to come out, but it'll be Monday at 2 p.m. And that'll be for those that have been affected by the fires. And Betty from Global will be coming to assess and possibly, looking at ways that maybe gift cards for those that have been affected. So we're working, diligently with that. And thank you, Leo, and thank you, Arnold. I know you guys are, during your lunch hour and everything, you guys were able to, come out here and do that. And I think that, all of you salaried employees that have, gone above and beyond, yes, your salary, but you know what, you guys have put in the time. And with that, I do want to, kind of bring this up to Mayor and Council. I think, I know the county has been working on a resolution on how those that are salaried, how there's ways to get, possibly a way, I'll say it like that, to get those salaried employees, reimbursed for the time that they did, or the city reimbursed for the time that these employees put in. So I will, follow up that with, with the attorney, and I know that the county organization is kind of looking into that. So that's one thing that I would, kind of food for thought for you guys to consider. And with that, I guess, I know Councilor Montoya, brought up the vacancies, and I know one important one that, that the fire chief position, and I just, Chief Span, I just want to thank you for, I know you went through the ranks to officially get those, that group from Santa Fe to come down and help with the structural support in town. And I know Leo and I kind of went out one time, and they were, doing some stuff that basically the forestry was doing, but without that, I truly believe that you were very proactive, and I thank you for that. And I hope you get that job. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, one last promise item. I'd like to invite Mayor and Council to a light breaking ribbon ceremony on Tuesday, the 24th at 9 a.m. at the Hanna Park. The City of Las Vegas and its employees will be installing the lighting that was allocated this last year through the legislature. And I'd like to invite the delegates to be present also. So, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Casey, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Thank you. I'll wait to do all my thank yous after I talk about these other things that I've been bombarded with phone calls about noise ordinances that are not being enforced. Thank you. I couldn't think of the word.
Yeah.
And so apparently on Bridge Street, there have been a lot of concerns about noises from a couple of the business owners there. One business owner in particular was upset that the person that is renting their building for their business is threatening to leave because of the noise. And then the people that live on Douglas Avenue, we're also complaining about the noise there. And so this is not a new issue. It's been going on for years. And I know that we have a shortage of employees at the police department also, but maybe if we had, you know, a little bit more patrol in those areas so that motorcycles without a muffler or whatever can be stopped. We do have a noise ordinance, and maybe that needs to be reviewed and strengthened, or I don't know what we need to do, but we need to address that. The other one is the AWC. I have received a lot of phone calls, and I have kept very close touch with our city attorney because I don't want to say anything that is not correct, and I've even gone so far as to send him copies of emails that I have responded to people with. And I would like him, for the record, now, Mr. Mayor, to explain why we have a new RFP, because people in the community feel that it's direct retaliation against the AWC, that we're trying to get rid of the shelter, that we don't care about animals, all kinds of things. So I would like Mr. Aaron to please discuss that briefly.
Yeah, Councilwoman, pursuant to the rules that govern procurement and what the city is required to do, it's actually the opposite. The allegation that the city's trying to do something negative against the contractor for the animal shelter is actually the opposite. The city's extended that contract as long as we can do under the current rules that bind the city, which was 4 years. We didn't cut them off at a year or 2 years or 3 years. We've extended it the full 4 years. And so actually the opposite. The city's done everything it can to keep that contract in place as long as it can. And we're running up against a 4-year expiration date. We can't just continue to re-up contracts beyond 4 years based on what the state requires of the city. And obviously we don't want issues with the state or with DFA or any procurement issues or any audit issues for that matter. So we're required to do an RFP at the end of every 4 years for that contract, and that's what we're doing, and that's why.
Thank you very much. My last comment is also a big thank you to everyone who has, to the survivors who have lost everything, those who have had their properties spared but lost other structures, lost animals. There has been a lot of loss, and there's a lot of stress in the community. But I want to commend the sheriff's office, the police department, fire department here. All of our employees have been absolutely outstanding in terms of getting out there and helping. And I also want to commend Councilor Romero and Councilor Ulibarri, Councilor Montoya, who had his own property that was threatened by the fire, have all been very instrumental in helping people along the way. Mr. Mayor, you've done a commendable job of making sure that we address issues that were of vital importance to the safety and well-being of the community, and I think that that's very important for people to know. Everyone has worked extra hard, and people in departments that maybe you don't even think about, but finance, HR, everybody is pulling together to make sure that people are compensated for the extra work that they've done. They've worked with the city clerk, the assistant city manager, assistant city clerk. Everybody is working together to make sure that services continue to be provided to the people of Las Vegas. And I think it's a wonderful show to the community how well a group of people can function when they are faced with a huge, enormous disaster that is happening right in front of them. and be able to deal with it. And so thank you, everybody, very much. I think you're all pretty awesome. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Casey. I appreciate that. I do want to touch a little bit about the noise. I've been working with the chief, and I expect this campaign to be to go into effect immediately, and that's with the speed and the noise reduction. We did renew and we did revisit the ordinance about the noise. So last summer, anticipating that every summer we're going to have this problem. So the ordinance is fresh. It just needs to be enforced. And so does speed. During the summertime, we get complaints all the time. So what I'm expecting from the chief and from the police department is that they have a very successful campaign to slow down the speeders and to start issuing citations for noise. So, and I have also visited with the merchants on Bridge Street. Their biggest concern is that it's so audible, the noise, that it sets off car alarms, business alarms. It knocks stuff off display windows in some of the shops. That's how loud and obnoxious these motorcycles are. And so I do expect full cooperation from the police department in having a successful campaign to reduce speed and noise. So, thank you. Next order of business, please.
Mr. Mayor, we have our police chief's report. We have Police Chief Antonio Salazar.
Welcome, Mr. Salazar.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So as this gets started, I want to touch a little on the noise ordinances and the loud exhaust. Particularly, it's the loud exhaust, what's going down Bridge Street, and those are the complaints that we're getting. I did speak with a couple of merchants today, and we've assured them that we're going to be working here in the near future to start enforcing those noise ordinances, more specifically loud exhaust ordinances.
Do you have the equipment that it takes? Do your officers are equipped with decibel readers?
So in New Mexico, and per state statute, it's based off of officer discretion. We don't have, it's not specific in the ordinances, and the state statutes aren't specific to any decibel systems. It's just loud exhaust, and that falls under too much smoke. So it's just officer discretion on that. So it gives us a lot more, I guess teeth in traffic enforcement on that part. So.
And then don't forget that these engines may be idle and not reach a high decibel, but when they take off and rev their engines, that's when it becomes obnoxious.
Right.
And so,
and that's what we're going to be looking into. And like I said, I spoke with the merchants, some of the merchants there on Bridge today, and that's what we're going to be looking into as far as enforcing those ordinances on Bridge Street.
it should be citywide, actually.
Yes, but specifically with those merchants that had some issues with those.
Mr. Mayor. Chief, thinking out of the box, can we write up an ordinance to not have
What we have,
motorcycles down Bridge Street and around the plaza?
motorcycles,
Yeah.
so, I mean, that would be up to mayor and council, but it's a public road.
Yes,
It's gonna be kinda hard for us to
restrict.
certain vehicles on those roadways, on a public road.
Mm.
But like I said, it's in state statute and city ordinances for loud exhaust. It's just up to us to start enforcing those ordinances and statutes.
Yeah, because it is, I've sat outside the pizza place or the plaza and around there, and you can't even have a conversation because here comes a motorcycle ramming it, and it's you gotta stop everything.
Right.
till they leave around the park.
Yes.
And it's really annoying, really. And you know, you're sitting here with somebody from out of town or a visitor or, you know, a relative, and you get interrupted by all this, and it's like, really? You know,
Yes.
so just curious if we could put some kind of signs or prohibit it from that area. Like we do bicycles on parks and scooters on this and the other, so I'm just curious.
That would be difficult because it is a public road and
Okay.
to
Thank you.
separate vehicles from the roadways. So,
And Chief, sorry, we'll let you get going on your report, but I wanted to recognize all the officers that are here this evening. Thank you for your service to every single one of you. I appreciate you very much. Go ahead, Mr. Salazar.
so the Field Operations Division, which is patrol, we had 1,334 calls for service, 119 traffic citations, 8 non-traffic citations, 45 parking citations, and then I'll jump over to 40 arrests were made for the patrol division. Some of the special operations that we conducted for the month of April was Buckle Up and Ticket or Click It. That was for April 8th. We also did roadblocks for the Waco movie. And we also assisted and continuing to assist with Hermit's Peak Calf Canyon fire. Code enforcement, we had 52 calls for service, 2 My Civic, those the online complaints from the 311, 1 cease and desist on a building permit, 23 red tags were issued, 2 April requests were completed, and 4 citations were issued. And like I said before, we all are assisting on the fire at this point. Animal control, we had 259 calls for service for animal control. And then I'll get into the total intakes here in a little bit. So we had 34 citations were issued, 16 verbal warnings, 2 animal cruelty cases are pending, and 4 animals were seized. And the total intakes, we're currently waiting on AWC. For whatever reason, they haven't given us their stats, possibly because of the transitioning for the evacuation, for whatever reason they evacuated for, but those are the reasons why we don't have those stats. Our records division, 110 offense incident reports, 21 traffic accident reports were entered, 76 citations were entered, 119 customers were attended to, 288 offense incident and traffic accident reports were scanned, and 7 City of Las Vegas IPRAs were completed. And we continue to work on the destruction orders that we have for the department.
So can you go back to that previous slide? What's offense?
The offensive, those are the incident reports that we have for
What are those?
for reports that are generated, police reports. Those were entered into our system.
Okay. And how does that differ from the 288?
So these two are combined, 288 including traffic accident reports. The 110 were just strictly police reports, offense reports. And then these ones down at the bottom, the 288, they also include traffic accidents.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. The investigations, narcotics, and evidence divisions, 0 cases were assigned to them, but they also had 15 self-initiated calls or self-initiated cases. 3 arrests were made and 8 cases were closed out. And I want everybody to keep in mind these were the peak of fire. We were making sure our citizens were safe, So we had a lot of other duties that we were attending to for the month of April. So the fire, that was our first priority for the month of April, because Vegas was in the thick of things whenever it came to the fire, and we wanted to make sure that we had extra patrol out there. So let's jump down to, so agents, investigations, and police officers, evidence seized. So evidence was turned in, 213. Evidence cases, 143. In cases at the labs, we currently have 87, and we have one at RCFL. 2 firearms were seized from patrol.
What's our CFL?
That is where they download phones for evidence or any electronic devices. 1 gram of marijuana and a total of $1,660 was seized. The meetings and trainings that were attended, we attended district court, magistrate court, safe house meetings, MDT meetings, drug investigations trainings in Albuquerque. Street crimes responded to 53 calls for service in the March, oh, sorry, that's for March. And also continuing to assist with Calf Canyon and Herman's Peak Fire. So the first one here, I'm going to hold off on that one because they're in the audience and I want to have them come up so mayor and council can meet them. We had 1 police officer attend investigations interrogation training. 1 police officer attended the BBS narcotics enforcement training for drug investigations training in Albuquerque. Police officer attended the LEDA managing and conducting internal affairs. 1 police officer attended the SFST instructor course in Clovis. So on these ones here, I want to see if I can get Fabia and Ellis up here. They graduated today from the academy.
Yay.
There was 3 of them. Christian Garcia couldn't make it today, but this is Justin Padilla and Jordan Ellis.
Welcome. Good job. Congratulations.
Justin Padilla was actually the top driver of the academy out of
Wow.
33 students.
Congratulations.
Very good.
Wonderful.
Congratulations.
Thanks for representing good.
Also, personnel order distributed for all qualified officers for the honor guard. We're going to start the honor guard so we can start representing the police department in different events through our honor guard. Also, letters of interest were entered for the sergeant's position so we can get those vacancies cleared. And we attended the child abuse awareness event in April 16th at Melody Park. These are our current vacancies. And I know there's big talks about the animal control officers. There's 2, which we've had for a little while, but I want to remind everybody that we have 2 certified animal control officers at the police department. We have 1 of those is working alongside with our CSA, who has just put in for animal control officer. He's going through that process. So we'll currently have 1, but this says we have a vacancy, but they are actually taking call, as you saw in the earlier slide, we're handling all animal control calls, and even though it says a vacancy, we still have 2 animal control officers doing strictly animal control. I wanted to bring this up. I know this was during the month of April for the art competition. We're hoping so we can reschedule it for so mayor and council can vote on this. And then also another big one that we need to reschedule is the Battle of the Badges. Hopefully next month, mid-next month, we want to try to reschedule. And hopefully with this we can kind of lift everybody's spirits up, and as the fire's continuing to, well, staying away from the city first and foremost, but spreading north and south. So. And with that, I stand for any questions.
It's not so much a question, but a request. I'd like to meet with you and your narcotics division on Friday at 11:30 to discuss the progress and to see what else we can do to be more active in enforcing drug trafficking in Las Vegas.
Okay.
So I'd like that meeting to happen on Friday at 11:30.
Okay.
If you don't mind.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Montoya?
On recruiting and hiring and promotions, you indicated that you send out letters to qualified officers for testing for the sergeant position. How does that procedure work?
So those are letters of interest. So the officers who are qualified to test for that position, they send letters of interest through their chain of command. And if they're qualified, they go through the testing process, interview process, and they're recommended for hire at that point. Or recommended for the position.
Is that by a committee or the police, what committees?
It's through through an interview board that is set up through our commander for the interview process, and then the testing process is through another oral board.
And is our HR office involved in that?
Yes, they're involved in all of our interviews.
Okay, because at one time, I don't believe they were, but, okay, thank you.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Romero?
Chief?
Yes.
A couple things, and I guess I'll kind of touch up on this, just for full disclosure, I don't do exhaust systems on motorcycles. But what I do want to bring up here is that, and Chief and you know, to the officers that are out there, you know, we could come up with all these different ideas as to ordinances and that, but the reality is, as we saw, there's vacancies in the PD. So I guess, you know, the priority from, or direction from mayor and council would be that we would have to set forth what are our priorities, because, I mean, you already have your priorities, life and death. I mean, there's a structure already in place. So at what point, I mean, we could complain all we want about noise, but I'd rather you attend to a life and death situation than somebody's loud, you know, motorcycle system.
Right.
So, you know, there's a give and take. I know we have, you know, concerns with speeding, but again, there's that give and take. I mean, we don't have the officers to sit and take care of speeding alone. We don't have the officers to address. So it's a give and take, and I think that needs to be taken into consideration, not only from us here, but also the community. Is we need some type of media campaign as to, you know, this is, you know, our priorities, and go down there. And I think another media campaign that we have to maybe address within the PD is, we saw the calls for service for animal control. But if we look at Facebook right now, we could probably say about 100 that, you know, we have pets that aren't being fed, they're not doing this, they're not doing that. The big thing is that these calls need to be made through dispatch. You know, you don't have officers sitting on Facebook, you know, taking reports or doing that. So we need some type of campaign that, you know, if you see something going on, report it, and that way it's followed, you know, it's followed through with. Because, you know, you shouldn't be taking calls from us because we saw it on Facebook or we got messaged on Facebook, things like that, because that's not the way that the system or the city works.
Right.
So if you could kind of think, you know, internally how we could do that, whether it's a campaign, you know, call dispatch for these or whatever it takes, because I think that's the message we need to start sending, because that's what I do. They, you know, oh, well, there's this dog, there's this, that, well, did you call dispatch?
Yes.
You know, so, and of course, you know, even with dispatch, there's some things that, you know, have to probably, you know, be addressed, but we need to make sure that we're putting the flow where it needs to go, and I think that's the important part that we need to, you know, as counselors sit here is, you guys, I mean, your officers are taking the calls and they prioritize, you know, they're not gonna go chase a motorcycle when, you know, something else is happening, a robbery or an overdose or things like that. So, I mean, of course, it's just the way we send the message and let people know, well, this is why, I mean, we have to do something so the community understands that you're not chasing a motorcycle with the loud pipes because, you know, you might be saving somebody's life, you know, and that's what we have to send up. Thank you.
Can I bring this up? Did you at one time tell me that you had more police officers on the beat now than you have had in the past?
We do.
Okay, so there's plenty of officers to do what, and still prioritize calls.
And then also to, you know, to get a hold of one with the speeding and hopefully with the loud exhaust. I mean, that comes with speeding most of the time. So we do have and already have purchased those speed trailers. So we've already taken steps to kind of mitigate those concerns from the community. And I understand where Councilman Romero is coming from as far as taking calls for service through Facebook. I mean, we need to kind of develop a better way and maybe put something out there to show, hey, that's not going to work. I mean, everybody knows it doesn't work. I mean, this is the number that you need to call for us to get an officer or an animal control officer out there.
Very well. Is it illegal to have modified exhaust or no exhaust in a car in New Mexico?
It is. It is. And there's an ordinance and state statute for that.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Next order of business, please.
Mr. Mayor, we have our finance report. We have Dominic Chavez, our interim finance director.
Welcome, Mr. Chavez.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
I appreciate you stepping up during the absence of the finance director.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dominic.
I'm here to present the finance report for the month of April 2022. We're about 83% of the year lapsed. And for our general fund, our revenues have come in at 90% so far. Our expenditures are at 59, which this gives us a surplus of $1,105,437. And just so you're aware, I have been seeing a lot of purchase requisitions coming through, so those expenditures are more than likely to go up in the month of May. For our enterprise funds, our revenues are at 85%, and our expenditures are at 69%. Gives us a surplus of $1,699,565. Our recreation department, our revenues are at 48%. Keep in mind that includes the general fund transfer into the recreation center. And our expenditures are at 48%, and giving us a surplus of $94,731. Our lodger's tax, our revenues are at 91%, and our expenditures are at 56%, giving us a surplus of $145,541. That'll stand for any questions, Mayor and Council.
Dominic,
Yes,
the question I'll always ask you, is there anything in this report that you find alarming or you need to let council know about?
Nothing, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Ms. Casey?
I just want to thank Mr. Chavez. He is so very diligent, and I requested some information from him and got it like within minutes. And I really appreciate that very much. And then I didn't understand some of it because I'm not a math person to begin with, and the different accounts and stuff kind of threw me off because I'm used to public school accounting, not municipality accounting. And so he was very patient and responded to my some questions pretty fast too. So I appreciate that very much. Thank you. And I know you're very busy, and I didn't want to have to bother you, but I appreciate that you took the time to do it.
No problem.
Dominic, was this report approved by the finance committee?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you so much.
Mr. Mayor, he survived the first meeting.
Yes.
Put it that way.
Poor Dominic.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Romero?
And I just want to, thank you again. I mean, like Councilor Casey said, thank you, Dominic, for stepping up. And I'll be honest, I have felt that in the past, you've kind of been the one, doing what's needed to be done in that office. So I want to thank you. And I know, the finance committee might be a little, harsh, but I think we got a good group now. And additional oversight is never a problem. All it does is help the organization, which is the city of Las Vegas, and to me, it alleviates some of the issues that we've had here, where we're having to, really dig into, and that's not the way it's just, it should work. That's why you have committees. Committee isn't just a rubber stamp. Committees are going to ask the questions. That way, it's not, they're going to ask the questions and we ask the questions. It's not just, well, rubber stamp and then move it on. So never take, any, now that you're sitting there, don't be discouraged or whatever might happen. But just it's. When you have a good checks and balances from top to bottom, things work out, and just keep up the good work. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dominic, for all your work.
Yes,
I
sir.
appreciate you.
You bet. Thank you. Appreciate
Yes,
you.
sir. Next order of business, please.
Moving on to our business items, Mr. Mayor, we have our first item, which is item 7 on the agenda. Request approval of Resolution 22-26, emergency proclamation declaring the restriction of fireworks. We have our interim fire chief, Stephen Span.
Mr. Span, welcome. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome, sir. So Mayor and Council, as of April 25th, Governor put out a emergency declaration requesting municipalities and counties to restrict fireworks for this holiday season. We went through and looked at our city ordinances, which are already fairly strict, as well as 60-2C, which is the state statute that regulates them. We've come up with this resolution for you that restricts the sale of the fireworks that we can restrict, and also bans the use and possession of certain other fireworks. It also restricts the use of these anywhere near our Riverwalk, Bosque, or any of our wildland within the city. The one thing it does have in here is it also bans any public displays. We spoke with our contractor for the fireworks show this year. She's advised us that with COVID, she might not even have enough staff to put the show on for us. She won't be able to give us a final answer on that for 3 to 4 weeks. We have to have this in place 20 days prior to the sale holiday, which starts June 20th. If we enter into this contract with her and we later decide to cancel it, there is a percentage fee. She was saying 20 to 30% that they would have to keep for the cancellation. So my recommendation is we ban and we cancel the city display show as well.
Very well. Is there a possibility, and I'll ask Scott this, is there a possibility of double or tripling the fine for people who use fireworks in the city?
Well, at this point, amending an ordinance prior to 4th of July is going to be tough just because of the timeline. We've got to present it to council, it's got to go up for publication, it's got to come back for review. So getting it done for this year, we'd be, looking at Cassandra, because she's the one who does all the publications and
Yeah,
stuff. We'd be on a super tight deadline for that. But in general, if, search certainly for future years, if the council wants to kind of step back and kind of maybe come up with a master plan for years going forward, you could certainly do that.
3 things happened during the summer with me and my telephone. Speeding. Everyone calls me about speeding on every single street. The other one is noise. And the third one is fireworks. People call me in the middle of the night, 4 o'clock in the morning, when the fireworks are going off. Although those fireworks are not sold in Las Vegas, but they could be sold right outside city limits, and that's what we were experiencing last year. And so it's hard to differentiate or to explain to the public, you can buy all the fireworks you want wherever you want to get them, but they're illegal to use in the city limits. So that's the message that we need to share with the public, is you can go buy all the fireworks you want wherever, but if you're caught, and is there any way to beef it up from going to the first time a warning to anything? So if you're called and you know that somebody's setting them off, I'd like for you to go straight to the fine, because this is really a big problem and in our community. For that reason, because people purchase from out of town and use them here anyway. And so, the frustration is that the ordinance says that you can give them a warning, and then the second call is another warning, and the third call. These are the people who are going to be doing this. And so I'm wondering, is there a possibility that we can skip the warning and go straight to the fine? In other words, make this more serious for public that are defiant in our ordinances.
Under the state statute, it's an officer's discretion.
And could it be a directive from the chief saying that you will go to a citation?
It could be, because under the ordinance, it could be the police department, fire department, or code enforcement that can cite under this ordinance. So all three departments can cite this. Our problem is that by the time we get over there, they see a big red truck and they disappear.
No, I'm sure.
PD's a little bit more
I'm
stealthy
sure.
than us, so.
Yeah, and the people who call me, I'll say, okay, well, call the police department, and they do. By the time they get there, it's 4:30 in the morning and they've gone to sleep. So, Mr. Romero?
So, I guess, Chief, what I was gonna, basically what the mayor was, as far as fines, that's already set statute, right? The city can't come in and,
It's already said. The thing we have to be careful with, though, is back in 1990, they changed 6-2C, and the AG gave his opinion on it, that no municipality, not even a home rule, can go more stricter than the state statute.
and if, I don't know if you guys have had a chance, and the reason why I know, and probably Councilor Casey could, vouch because she sat in the legislature, the lobbyists for the fireworks
No.
is a very powerful lobbyist group in Santa Fe. So you know why we can't completely ban fireworks is because part of the system. I mean, I hate to say that. So if you read this ordinance, it's not completely banning, there's still going to be sparklers, there's going to be the ground items,
Fountains, items like that.
fountains, things like that. The fountains, if they make a noise, that's up, I mean, prosecuting that's going to be very difficult because technically it's still allowed. So, I mean, of course, we're going to eliminate the items that will be more acceptable to starting the fires and stuff like that. So, I mean, I think we all feel that it should be a lot more strict, but unfortunately, under state statute, this is the best that we could do, and that you probably follow that, right?
Yeah, this is the strictest we can go right now. But with those fountains and the ones that are still allowed, they are restricted to a paved or barren surface, and they have to have a water supply nearby.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Ms. Casey?
Thank you. I'm partially to blame for that because when I was in the legislature, the fireworks factory was in my legislative district. And they employed an awful lot of people. They employed even developmentally disabled people that would assemble the fireworks. And so every year it came up, just ban them completely, nothing sold in the state, nothing, And so every year it was a fight. And it was a very difficult fight for me because I was worried about fires being started. But at the same time, I didn't want to ban something that was going to shut down the factory and have about 600 people lose their jobs. So it was a tough decision, but I think that that's why, we can ban them here. Municipalities can do that. And, certain fireworks cannot be used in certain areas. And so I think we have kind of a compromise. It's not the greatest thing, but I think if we are extra careful, and I think that people will be a little bit more cooperative here now that they've seen the devastation that a fire can cause and the horrible loss, and people are heartbroken. They're it's been very, very difficult for everybody. So I'm in favor of this resolution.
Is that a motion, Ms. Casey?
Yes, it is.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor by Dr. Casey. Second, please. Second by Mr. Romero. Roll call, please.
Counselor Olivari?
Yes.
Counselor Casey?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Casey, a second by Counselor Romero. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you so much. I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session.
Mr. Mayor, I believe the executive is after business item number 2,
Yeah, we still have.
as per the amendment.
Okay.
So moving on to the next business item, and just so the public knows, the next business items are required as part of the city charter, and that's what we call this an organizational meeting. Getting into the first business item is review and discussion and possible action regarding the City of Las Vegas mission and vision statements. Mr. Mayor, that is pretty much these are your items. And in each of your packets, you have the current mission and vision statement. And just so you know, this was adopted back in 2009, and we've kept the same one ever since.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Casey.
I would like to make a change to the mission statement so that it reads not only promoting cultural preservation, but I would like to add, and historical preservation.
Cultural and historic preservation and economic opportunity.
Yes.
Okay.
If I can get there, I'll read it. I'm sorry, my phone is ringing. This is strong. I'll have to look on with you.
Sure.
So with my motion, I would like the vision statement, the mission statement to read, "The City of Las Vegas progressively enhances quality of life by providing essential services, promoting cultural and historic preservation and economic opportunity." So just adding "and historic" before preservation.
I second that, Mr. Mayor.
There's a motion on the floor by Ms. Casey, second by Mr. Romero, to change the wording as stated by Ms. Casey. Roll call, please.
And Mr. Mayor, if I may ask the question, for the vision statement, will that remain the same?
We're going to do
Are you going to do that separately?
We could do that next.
Okay. Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
this. Yes.
Counselor Olivari?
Yes.
Counselor Casey?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Casey, a second by Counselor Romero. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Moving on to the vision statement. Any changes?
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
I'd like to recommend that, I know Mayor and Council wants, Mayor wants, the Finance Committee to approve everything that goes before the Mayor and Council. And that seems to be impossible by us having our meetings on the second and third Wednesday of the month. And even if we have our Finance Committee meetings the way we are right now, on the second, first meeting of the second council meeting, there's still not enough really time. We're squeezing it in for staff to be prepared for that Finance Committee meeting. So I'm going to recommend, and the only way that the Finance Committee is able to approve everything that comes before Mayor and Council is if we move all our meetings to the third and fourth Wednesday of the month. So, I don't know, that's up
That's
for
fine.
discussion, and
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
point of order.
Yeah, we're talking about the vision statement. Can we get through that and then go to comment?
are we on the top 10 priorities?
No.
No, not
We're on
yet.
vision statement.
Hmm.
We have a mission statement, now the vision. If there aren't any changes to that, I'll entertain a motion to accept the vision statement as stated.
I move that we accept the vision statement as it stands.
There's a motion on the floor by Ms. Casey, second.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Second by Mr. Ulibarri. Roll call, please.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Casey?
Yes.
Counselor Olivari?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Casey, a second by Counselor Olivari. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you, Cassandra.
Moving on to item 2, review, discussion, and possible action reviewing the top 10 priorities of the previously elected governing body. And I have attached the ICIP project summary, the last updated one that our city manager provided to me for your review.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Romero.
I have a question, and then I guess I should have brought this up earlier, but the top 10 priorities I had figured is, where we would name, let's say, public safety, things like that.
Not
And this
necessarily
ICIP,
projects.
Yeah, projects. So I don't know how you guys feel, but maybe we could table this item
Sure.
too.
We could table this
Kind of
for,
more discussion on our actual priorities.
when we do our retreat. Yeah.
Good idea.
That'd be fine.
There's a motion on the floor
Sure,
to
a motion
table.
to table.
Second.
There's a motion by Mr. Romero to table, second, till we, for our retreat. Second by Ms. Casey. Roll call, please.
Counselor Olivari?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Casey?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Casey. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Mayor.
Mr. Montoya.
Mr. City Manager, can this list be updated by then? Because I know there's a lot of projects here that we're already working on that will be completed this year or this summer.
Yes, sir, we can definitely look at that and revising this. This was revised December before we went to legislature.
Yeah, but I know we've had like the West Side Market that's being worked on, the Keystone improvements,
Salazar.
and Salazar and Romero and all these other streets that are on here. If we can update the list
Yes, sir.
as completion dates.
And just to clarify, as much as Mr. Romero brings up a good point, it's not so much projects that we're interested in, our top 10 projects, but we're also interested in what our priorities are as a community. So if it's public safety is our number one, community development number two, whatever it is, we can dissect that a little bit later, just for clarification. Next order of business?
Mr. Mayor, is this where I would be able to request?
Your meetings you can have whenever. Your committee just needs to vote on it. It's not in the charter that you have to
Well, I'm
meet.
not talking about my committee.
Mhm,
I'm talking about mayor and council's meetings.
mhm.
Yeah. We need to change that. It's up to us to change that.
Oh, I thought you were saying your committee's meeting.
No, our committee meeting can't. No, it's the mayor and council meetings that need to change.
Why can't your change? The finance committee
Because
change?
it's already set on the third Monday of the month,
Mhm,
and our meetings are on the second and on the third.
mhm.
So in order for us to bring everything to the mayor and council, we have to change our meetings to the third and fourth Wednesday of the month. And that's what this is organizational meeting is for, to discuss what order we'll be voting on and when we'll be having our meetings, and I don't know what else the clerk might have.
Is that that?
But that's one of the items that if mayor and council wants the finance committee to go through everything and make the recommendations to us, that's the only way that it can be done.
I still don't understand why the finance committee can't change their dates.
Because if you change it from the third Monday to the second Monday, that's giving staff one less week to prepare and do all what they have to do within the end of the month to the second Monday. Isn't that right, Mr. Chavez? And that's impossible to do. Now, we're having our meetings on the third Monday, and in order for us to bring everything to the mayor and council, council has to push forward their meetings to the third and fourth Wednesday of the month. We can't go before that.
Yeah.
It has to be a later date.
And I'm not in favor of that, because I think that early in the month, there are some time-sensitive issues that we need to attack earlier in the month than have to wait till the third week of every month to act on anything. So,
And
I don't know what the pleasure is of the council.
And I know, and maybe Cassandra could kind of vouch to this one. The reason why it was kind of separated, the second and third, is because, I'll stop there. The way I kind of understand is because if you did the 3 and 4, the third one would be real top-heavy, and then the fourth would really, it kind of,
There's no
it's-
balance, in other words.
What's your opinion?
So, Mr. Mayor, we can address that during our open meetings resolution, and we can address it at the retreat if you would like, however you want to. But I think what was behind the second and third is it was right in the middle of the
Right.
month. It wasn't too late or too early.
Right.
And that's the rest of the previous administration thought the same thing as well, so. and that seemed to work out, but I understand Councilor Montoya's trying to get everything for the Finance Committee to be reviewed prior to coming to the council as a recommendation, so.
So why couldn't finance do the first Monday of the month?
Because that would give staff 1 week to reconcile, right, Mr. Chavez? And that's impossible to do by any agency or any government. It takes time. If you don't want to do no spending for a month, they can do it. But if you want to continue spending the way you're spending, they need to have the 3 weeks, or better than 2 weeks, to reconcile in order to come with Mayor and Council with his budget. Is that right, Mr. Chavez?
Yes, sir. Also, whenever we do ours, whenever we do budget adjustments to the budget, whenever we have departments that come in and need that money put into their budget as early as can be, that would push us off another month. And so I know for senior center, we've done that on several occasions where we just can't squeeze it in because we don't have the time and we didn't have the ability to get it done for the finance committee before we could get it to council. And so that pushed us off 1 more month for the senior center, and that's happened to several departments.
Can we discuss this at a retreat, or when we could decide get those down, the dates and everything? Is that agreeable, Mr. Mattel?
Well, according to the city charter, this organizational meeting is for issues like this. We need to decide the roll call, how it's going to happen. We need to decide when we're going to have our meetings. When we need to decide those kind of administrative things in this organizational meeting that should have happened actually the first meeting after the election, or a month and a half later, or whatever.
Mr.
But you're the one, Mr. Mayor, that's insisting that the Finance Committee approve everything that comes to Mayor and Council, and that's impossible to do.
I think the
And,
only
you know,
comment I've ever made about approval was the finance report.
Well, either way, everything, you said everything that should be coming to Mayor and Council should come through the Finance Committee. And I've tried to explain that that's impossible because of when the time frames of our meetings are versus the council meetings. And you can't overwork them. I mean, they'd have to work day and night in order to get that report done and make those adjustments within that time period. It's just impossible to do.
Mr. Romero?
And we're shorthanded as it is, one staff in our finance department. So, I mean, I would settle, if you guys want, if Mayor and Council wants to just overlook it and override it, I mean, that's fine with me. But don't ask our finance director or myself, has this come through the finance committee? Because half of that stuff will not go through the finance committee. It'll go through it, but after the fact. And that's what I've been telling them. This has already gone through Mayor and Council because of the deadlines. So we're just stamping it. Is that right, Mr. Chavez?
That's what took place with the last one.
So, I mean, the thing is that they cannot reconcile their books.
I understand.
Yeah,
I understand.
okay. But I can have it either way. Either you want everything go through the finance, or we bring whatever goes through the finance. You know, whatever makes
Well,
it
and I
the
think that's what your committee should do. The finance committee should say, these are the things that need to go through council. These are the things that shouldn't. And let us decide as a council whether we want anything else on there. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
I don't need to shotgun everything and say you can't do anything in your office until it comes here. I'm not that micromanager person. All I'm saying is that certain things should go through the finance committee. Matching funds, that we're doing for a grant, those types of things. Mr. Romero?
And I'll just kind of say this right here. I mean, we could look up finance committee duties, and this is what comes up. Finance committee provides financial analysis, advice, and oversight of the organization's budget. The budget, I think it's our duty as elected officials, to accept, all the other stuff. I mean, so I think the whole role of the finance department is make sure that expenditures, procurement is followed, making sure that there's line items that we're not overspending, and it's the oversight and stuff like that. It's not,
It's the oversight of the budget, not
Mhm.
the year, not the daily things.
That's fine with me.
it's like, I mean, I guess my suggestion would be is that we discuss more on the role of the, and then I think we have to do that anyway, because I know there's some committees that we have to address, Mr. Mayor, and maybe with that, we could also discuss on some of the roles on some of these committees, because I know some of them have kind of, and I hate to say it this way, gone rogue,
Mhm.
so.
Mhm.
Very wrong, yeah.
So do you want to do that now?
No, I think we need more time to discuss it amongst us.
So I'm open for suggestions by the council.
Mr. Mayor, and just for clarification, the items that appear on the agenda tonight for the organizational meeting are the items that are required by charter to
Right.
be on the organizational meeting. Everything else can be at a retreat or another meeting that you all wish to discuss whatever item it is that you want to.
But these items are the
These
ones
items
that
are
are...
the ones that
Okay.
needed to be on here.
All right, that's fair
And
enough.
we only, we're in violation by one meeting because it was after the second election, which was the runoff election. So we should have had it last Wednesday. But instead, we were going to do it Friday. We could not meet that because of the situation we were in. So I suggested to you that we put it on this meeting, and that's why these items are on there.
Okay.
So just for
So-
clarification.
So clarification, Cassandra, so on item number 1,
Thank you, Dominic.
shall convene for the purpose of organizing, and I guess, or maybe you or Scott could answer this, what's the definition of organizing? So should we have,
That's my point. That's what the charter says, is that is supposed to be for organizing. How are you gonna run mayor and council? How are you gonna, what procedures, what
so
policies?
we went over the
you put in
vision and
place?
mission statement, so I guess, could we go back and table the organizing part? Scott,
Say again?
should we have, so we have the vision and mission statement, so to convene the purpose of organizing, to me, I kind of think that's kind of vague as to organize.
You could read a lot of things into organizing.
Exactly.
It's not clear, and it doesn't further, nothing further in here really defines what that is, what that means.
So would the safe bet be to table convening for the purpose of organizing, so we do have that retreat to discuss these items? Councilor Casey, what you, I know you're a little more.
Push through it as much as you can tonight in terms of
So,
what we have to do, and then take up the other items at a later date.
so Cassandra, clarify this. The items that are listed on this agenda are the items that this charter specifically says has to happen at an organization meeting.
That's correct.
It doesn't talk about meeting times and all that stuff.
No.
These are the things we must have at an organization meeting.
No, but
So it's
on
up to the council if they want to discuss the governing body's procedures, for example, like council.
But it's not
requests.
required by charter.
It's right there.
It doesn't specifically state that. It says organizing, and like our attorney said, that could mean
that we
anything. I'm not
decide.
sure what the charter commission
We
at the
could change
time
it
was
anyway,
thinking back
anytime.
then. I don't know, I wasn't here at the time, so I'm not sure what the definitions were.
Yeah, it's,
Mr. Mayor, if I may put a little bit of clarification. Item number 1, Mr. City Attorney says, Section 207 of the city charter, that the organizational meeting needs to happen a meeting after the election, first meeting, and it is for the purpose of organizing. Now, they left that open for a reason. That's for in case mayor and council wants to reorganize, however they want to organize their meetings. I mean, that's the purpose of it. Where the charter only indicates that we have to have 2 meetings per month. It doesn't say on a Sunday, on a Saturday, on a Wednesday, on the first, second, third, it doesn't say. So that's up to mayor and council to decide. And that's what that purpose of organization means. The way you do roll call, if we want to do same roll call every time, we organize that, we decide. If we want to rotate, we decide. Those kind of things need to be happening at this meeting, and that's how I brought this issue on item number 1. And that's purpose of organizing. That's the definition of that. Now, Cassandra's talking about something else on item number 2. Those are mandatory things that we gotta adopt in order to move forward.
So this is my point. Why don't we do what's on the agenda that's required in the charter? All the other housekeeping stuff, like meeting times and roll call and stuff, we could discuss at our retreat. This is part of the organization meeting.
And you go back to what Councilman Romero said, can we go back to item number 1, Mr. City Attorney, which you can if we haven't voted on item number 2, and resend that and put what just the mayor said, no. Use the purpose of organizing at a later date.
Yeah, I would just note that it says review, discussion, and possible action regarding the mission and vision statements. So it looks like it's tailored.
Possible.
That number 1 is tailors it down to discussing mission and vision statements, but you don't have to take any action. You can, but you can also just review and discuss.
We already did. We already did that. The charter doesn't tell you that it has to be in a certain order. So I would move on by saying we do what we need to do with this agenda. All those housekeeping stuff like meeting times and everything we can discuss at a retreat at a later date. Is that okay with the council?
Mr. Mayor, I would suggest that if we're going to have a retreat at a later date, that it not be later.
No,
We
no,
need
no.
to have it as soon as possible.
We were going to
so
have
we
it
can-
Friday,
Yeah.
but
I
of
know.
course everything happened, so this will be within the next 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yep.
And perhaps maybe, I don't know if Counselor Montoya and Mr. Chavez would maybe hold off on having a meeting until we have a finance meeting, until after we have the retreat? No? Okay.
Well, they can have a meeting anytime they want.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
But the thing is that we have this item on the agenda for a purpose. And it says the governing body at the first meeting following the municipal election shall convene for the purpose of organizing. Can't be more clear. Now's the time.
Well, organizing doesn't mean anything. We're organizing this meeting for the retreat that we're going to have. Whatever we're discussing now, we're organizing it so that we can discuss it at a later time.
Mr. Mayor, point of order. Cassandra, we already voted on item 2, right?
Yes, we
So
did.
we're past this item, Mr. Mayor? I think we did. So, next item,
And-
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to enter into executive session for personnel matters, NMSA 1978, 10-15-1H2, for discussing personnel that are listed on the agenda, and also for pending or threatened litigation, NMSA 1978, 10-15-1H7, for pending or threatened litigation.
There's a motion on the floor for executive session. Second,
Second,
please.
Mr. Mayor.
Second by Mr. Ulibarri. Roll call, please.
Counselor Casey?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Olivari?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Olivari. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Span, Dr. Span. Mr. Romero?
I make a motion to return to regular session after being in executive session for personnel matters, NMSA 1978 10-15-1H2, and also for matters pertaining to pending or pending litigation, 10-15-1H7. And I'd like to know for the record that only those matters specified in the motion for executive session were discussed and no action was taken.
Thank you. There's a motion to go back into regular session.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Second by Mr. Ulibarri. Roll call, please.
Counselor Casey?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Olivari?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Olivari. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Moving on to the agenda. We are on business item number 3, confirmation of appointed officers, City Manager Leo Maestas.
I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Romero?
I make a motion to confirm the appointed officer, City Manager Leo Maestas.
Second.
There's a motion by Mr. Romero, second by Ms. Casey. Roll call, please.
Counselor Olivari?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Casey?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Casey. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries. Moving on to item number 4, confirmation of appointed officers, City Attorney Scott Aaron.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Casey?
I move confirmation of appointed officer, City Attorney Scott Aaron.
There's a motion on the floor by Ms. Casey. Second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Romero. Roll call, please.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Counselor Casey?
Yes.
Counselor Olivari?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Casey, a second by Counselor Romero. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries. Moving on to item 5, confirmation of appointed officer, City Clerk Cassandra Frescas.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to confirm appointment officer, City Clerk Cassandra Frescas.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Romero,
Second, Mr. Mayor.
second by Mr. Ulibarri. Roll call, please.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Casey?
Yes.
Counselor Olivari?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Olivari. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 6, confirmation of appointed officer, Police Chief Antonio Salazar.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Casey?
I move confirmation of appointed officer, Police Chief Antonio Salazar.
There's a motion on the floor by Ms. Casey. I'll entertain a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Romero. Roll call, please.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Olivari?
Yes.
Counselor Casey?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Casey, a second by Counselor Romero. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I believe that there are contracts in place for all except for Police Chief Antonio Salazar, so we would have to work on that one, right?
Yes, we would have to bring that back to council.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adjourn.
There's a motion on the floor by Ms. Casey, second.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Second by Mr. Ulibarri. Roll call, please.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Olivari?
Yes.
Counselor Casey?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Casey, a second by Counselor Olivari. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Congratulations on your appointment. Absolutely.